Hi, my name is Esterina. If we haven't already met, and if we haven't, nice to meet you. I'm going to be starting some yoga classes online, or I hope to be. At least I'm going to give it a shot. And this is just a little introduction if you haven't done yoga before, or you haven't done a lot of yoga and you're not quite sure what to expect in a typical class. I know this is a little different because it's on video and it's not like a class at a studio with a lot of people. But it took me a little bit of a few years of trying yoga at home, trying yoga in studios, trying it with groups of people. And there's just a couple of things I think I would have enjoyed a little bit more about the classes had I known kind of what to expect or what the rules are really. The first is what to wear. So think about top, pants, and the feet. They're the three essential things that we mostly put on. For a top, you want something that's comfortable, something you can move in, loosely breathe in. For men, pretty much anything will work. For women, you really want something a little form-fitted around the waist. Not that it's going to be tight because you want to be able to move freely, but it's just so that when, maybe you're bending down to touch your toes or something, the top doesn't, expose something with the wardrobe malfunction, or sometimes, long things might fall into your eyes and it's just uncomfortable. Pants should be comfortable and stretchy, especially in the waist. So if you feel like an elastic waist is tight on you, it's probably not the best thing to wear. If it's comfortable for you, it just depends. But what you want is to not restrict your tummy. So when you breathe, you're really taking in and out oxygen as easily as you can. And on the feet, I'm sorry to tell people who aren't too keen on being barefoot, but it really helps to not wear socks. Usually you have a mat, and the grip on the mat is so much better without socks. It just gets slippery and all that stuff. If you're looking for a place to practice in the house, something with a hardwood floor is probably best, with the mat on top of it. If that's not what you can do, you don't have access to it, that's fine too. But just something very sturdy because you're going to be putting your weight on the floor, so you want a nice solid floor beneath you. As far as hydrating and replenishing during a class, you want to have water nearby and probably in a water bottle. I've notoriously kicked over dozens and dozens of bottles of water throughout practice. I advise having it in a place, just being mindful of it where it is during your practice. Maybe even, when you're in a house, you can put it up on a table or a desk or a chair next to you. It's a little bit easier than, when you're in a studio and you have your own things. But you do want to have some water. I was once told that you probably want to drink like 8 ounces of water in a class. That's a guideline. Sometimes I don't even have a sip, and other times I drink a whole 16-ounce thing down. So just bring it with you. You'll see how you feel. And maybe some days you'll need it and some days you won't. And what might you expect during a class? So most classes start in a seated position or a lying down prone position where you just sink in and land for 2 to 5 to 10 minutes depending on the instructor, and it's kind of a quiet time. You'll be getting verbal cues about what to do. There's going to be some slight movement, probably some breathing, depending on your instructor. I always usually start with breath, sometimes with mudras, which are hand movements, and I explain them the first time I do them with students always. And it's also helpful to have something to sit on if you're doing the seated position, because 5 to 10 minutes just sitting on the floor doesn't sound like much, but as a new student, I couldn't sit after like 30 seconds. I was in pain. By the end of the class, it was easier to sit when we sat back up and sort of landed where we initially landed to start with. But that first, initial time when you're becoming a student, it helps to sit on a pillow or a block if you have a block. I'll explain that during a class. Just up to you. Maybe you want to try sitting on the floor first. Maybe that works for you. What's going to happen next will be a little bit of a warm-up, then a bit of the practice, which is movement, the most movement, the stretching that will be done during the class, and then a cool down. Now, what I wish somebody would have told me early on, because I used to get up and do yoga in the morning with a DVD or a VCR tape, me dating myself here. I would get up and do yoga in the morning before work when I had young kids and pets and all kinds of stuff going on. And I only had like 30 minutes, and I would roll the video. And the last 5 minutes was always this weird thing where we laid on the floor in the end and just did nothing. And the second I laid down and followed the tape, I popped right back up, turned it off, and went on with my day. I just didn't find value in laying there, especially when I had a busy day ahead of me. And fast forward a couple of years, I actually went to a studio class because a woman at my church at the time was a chiropractor. Long story short, they were giving free classes for a week at her chiropractic studio. So I went to a couple of classes, and I couldn't just walk out at the end when we were doing that low prone position thing. So I stayed there, and the first class I couldn't stand it. I was like, what is this? You know, I have to get home. There's dinner. There's all these things. But the second night, it was like my favorite part of the class. And every student you speak to will say that that last pose where you rest, it's called the final resting pose or Shavasana, is the best part of the class. It's like a reward for the work you've done. And it's super important to allow your body to relax afterward and to take in and absorb everything that you just did with it. Let it come back to its stability, its baseline, and it feels really, really relaxing. I cannot believe I wasted years getting up and missing out on that part of the class. During the class, during the movements and the asanas, which are the poses, you want to just be careful all the time. Whatever the teacher is saying, whatever I'm saying, if you're watching me, your voice always is much more important than mine. So the poses are more like suggestions. So, you know, we'll say move here and you know, here. But if it really hurts here, I mean, just pull back. There's, even in a studio, everybody understands everybody's body is differently, and it's always your voice over mine, always. Nothing should ever hurt, pinch, tingle, burn, ever. If it is, I don't want to say you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying pull back. Maybe your body's not meant that way. Maybe you had an injury from this morning. Maybe you're tired and slept in a weird way. But we don't want to keep pushing when anything hurts, tingles, pinches, or burns. I would ask that you do push yourself a little bit to the edge of your range when we're doing stretches. To the range, to the part where it starts to hurt. But at that point, you kind of pull back just a little bit, like maybe an inch, and hang out in that inch. And as that inch becomes a little bit more comfortable as you're holding the pose, then it's okay to push it a little bit more. And you'll notice that your range ends up going out a little bit lower, further, by not going right to the end of your range right away. Just some advice that's really important to follow. After class, most students report being relaxed. Almost nobody leaves there aggravated. But with that relaxing, it's hard to hold on to it unless you're mindful of holding on to it. So if you're in a studio class, you know, maybe not get up and start chit-chatting right away, and because most people don't, and you'll seem weird. But also you'll lose that sense of relaxation that you'll often feel after you do a practice. So if you're home, just leave yourself a little time before you might open the door and run back out into the ruck of your house or the world. I'm taping this during the COVID-19, so a lot of people are, isolated in their homes with their family. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing to run back out there and relaxing, but just try to think about staying mindful for as long as you can after a practice. I think that's about it. I will soon be taping my first beginner's class. It will be for straight beginning. I will talk through almost every single thing, what the names are, how to sit in them, move in them, breathe in them. and it'll be fun. So I hope you enjoy the journey, whether it's with me or somebody else. Thank you for watching, and namaste. Thank you.